I'm 23 years old, and my online business has done over $1.3 million in sales in 2025. And I'm not just saying that to brag. Honestly, sometimes I sit there and think, how did this even happen? Because when people hear that number, they imagine someone who grew up with rich parents, connections, money, all of that stuff. But that wasn't my situation at all. My parents immigrated to the United States with me when I was just 2 years old. They came here chasing opportunity, and a better life for their kids, like a lot of immigrant families do. And growing up, the message was always the same: school comes first. Good grades, good college, stable job, 9 to 5 career. That was the blueprint for success. And for most of my childhood, I believed that that was the only path. But everything changed in 2020. When the pandemic hit, the entire world had shut down. People were stuck at home. No going to restaurants, no traveling. Suddenly, everyone started to do the same thing, buying stuff online. Now, the interesting thing is that I had already been messing around with selling things online much before that in high school. It was nothing crazy, just learning how different online marketplaces worked, selling random items, and just experimenting. But during the pandemic, something weird started happening. Sales just started taking off. The orders kept coming in, packages started going out every single day. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself that this is actually becoming something real. At that time, I was still in high school and I was still thinking like a normal student. But for the first time, I started realizing something: that there might actually be other paths in life besides the traditional one. And the funny thing is that I wasn't some rebellious kid who hated school. I actually took school very seriously. I had straight A's all 4 years of high school, not because I loved homework or studying, but because I wanted to make my parents proud. When you grow up in an immigrant family, you understand how much sacrifice went into getting here. My parents leaving their family behind, starting over in a new country, and just working really long hours. So I always had this pressure in the back of my mind that I needed to make their sacrifices worth it. And the way I did that was by performing well in school. But while all of that was happening, I also had this little online business that was just slowly growing in the background. By my senior year of high school, I was already selling around $5,000 worth of items every week, which for a high school kid was pretty crazy. But even then, I still treated it like a side thing. School was still the number one priority. Then I went to college, and this is where things started to change. I got a full year of college paid for because of my grades in high school, doing well on standardized tests, everything like that. The straight A's, all 4 years, really helped me to secure academic scholarships that helped cover the first year, which I'm incredibly grateful for. But even after that first year, the reality hit that even with these scholarships, college is expensive. I was paying for additional tuition, but the biggest expense was paying for private housing. Having reoccurring rent, electricity bills, all of that piling up was starting to get crazy. And every semester, I could literally feel the money leaving my bank account. Meanwhile, my online business kept growing, and there came a moment where I had this realization that the faster I graduate, the less money I'm burning on tuition and housing. So I did something kind of crazy. I decided to speedrun college. Most people spend 4 years getting their bachelor's degree. I finished mine in 2.5 years. It wasn't easy. I was stacking classes, taking overloaded semesters, anything I could do to get out faster. By my senior year, I took 21 credit hours while managing a full time business. And every semester that I stayed extra just meant more tuition, more housing, more money disappearing. But at that same time, my business was growing faster than ever. So every day I was constantly thinking like, hey, do I focus on school or do I focus on the business? Because during high school, my identity was basically the straight A student. But in college, something slowly changed. I realized something uncomfortable: that a lot of the things I was learning in business classes were being taught by professors who had never actually run a business. They were just teaching theory from a textbook. Meanwhile, I was running a real operation that at the time was already doing 6 figures in annual sales. And eventually, I just stopped obsessing over grades. Like, not completely. I still cared enough to graduate, but I just shifted all of my energy toward building something real. And that shift is what took my business from 6 figures in sales to over $1 million a year, every single year. Another cool part of this story is that eventually my brother joined in on the business full time too. He graduated from the same university with a finance degree. So if you think about it, it's kind of funny. You have two brothers with business degrees running a successful business, but barely using anything we learned in school on a daily basis. Most of what we learn came from trial and error, just testing things, making mistakes, fixing problems, and figuring it out as we go. And during all of these years, I was working almost completely in silence. I wasn't posting about it online. I wasn't telling everyone what I was doing. To most people around me, it probably looked like nothing special was happening. Some people even thought it was a joke until one day something happened that shocked a lot of people. I bought my first house at just 20 years old. And when I think about that now, it's honestly kind of surreal. I bought a house before I kissed a girl. I literally bought a house before I was legally allowed to drink alcohol. But, behind that moment were years of work that nobody saw. People see the results, they see the house, they see the revenue numbers, but what they don't see are the sacrifices. Because for the first 2 years of college, I didn't even go to the bars once, not one time. While everyone else was partying, I was in my dorm room packing orders and grinding on the business, answering customer messages, managing inventory, dropping packages to the post office. The first time I actually went to a college bar was when I took a gap year, which would have been my junior year of high school. My freshman year roommate at the time had just invited me out one weekend. And that was basically my way of celebrating how far the business had come. But truthfully, I was never really the partying type. I was just focused on building something real. Running a business while going to school full time was one of the most mentally exhausting periods of my life. There were weeks where I would go to the post office more times than I went to class. Like I mentioned, my senior year, I was taking 21 credit hours trying to graduate early. And there were days where I just skipped classes entirely just to keep the business running. There were definitely moments where I thought about quitting because juggling everything was a lot. But every time that thought had crossed my mind, I reminded myself of something, that if I quit, everyone who doubted me would be right. And I couldn't let that happen. If there's one regret I have, it's not starting sooner, not trying more things earlier. Because for a long time, I actually thought about sharing my journey online, but none of my close friends at the time were really interested in entrepreneurship. So I just assumed people on the internet wouldn't care either. But recently, I started seeing other creators talk about their experiences with business and life, and it made me realize something, that maybe there are people who do want to hear my real story. So that's why I started this channel. I'm not here pretending to be some guru. Quite frankly, I'm just a normal 23-year-old guy who loves gaming and somehow built $1 million business along the way. And on this channel, I want to talk about things like making money online, entrepreneurship, personal finance, and just documenting my journey as I keep building. Because the truth is, there are more opportunities today than ever before. And if you're someone who's been thinking about starting something, this might be your sign. Start that business, start the YouTube channel, try whatever idea you have, because you can't lose if you never quit. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video and want to follow along for the journey, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions on topics you want me to talk about in future videos, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.